If you're a business leader who would love to have the healthiest December of your life, today's episode of the Kirk Miller Podcast is certainly going to help you do that. If you are someone listening to this who isn't bothered about having the healthiest December of your life, then you probably need to turn off the episode now. But in truth, I don't believe anybody given the choice and with certain tactics and mental frameworks would say no to having a healthier December. And that doesn't mean to say that if you're listening to this or watching this, that you need to be boring. Myself, my clients, my friends, my family, all of us socialize December. You know, we have a life. But there are certain things you can do to still do that without compromising how you want to look, how you want to feel at the end of December and going into January. Because I don't believe anybody really wants to end the year or go into next year feeling like absolute shit and maybe undoing a fantastic year of solid work with their training, their food, their movement, basically looking after their physical shape and obviously energy management, etc. But the reason I'm shooting this episode is I do think December is without question the most challenging month of the year when it comes to potentially compromising people's habits, because there's a lot more social occasions, a lot more temptations, and as I'll come on to in a second with problems I notice with this time of the year, there are habitual patterns that, you know, have been so ingrained in us year to year that, you know, it can be hard to break sometimes to form better ones. And even though I've labeled this episode, How to Have the Healthiest December of Your Life, the framework I'm going to go through today, which is going to really present a logical way of attacking your December. The reality is this framework you can apply to any single month where you really want to upgrade your standards with how you train, think, move, eat, basically manage you, okay? So just getting straight to it, what do I see as the main problems, particularly in December? It's, for me, definitely the month where most people overeat and drink more calories. You know, if you were to probably evaluate the last 5 to 10 years of your life, as you've got older, certainly, maybe had more money to spend at certain restaurants, you've got a family partner, that's your thing to switch off, or you might even have more, company end of year celebrations, etc. If I'm a guessing man, and all my years of experience of coaching, most people tend to overeat, drink in this month of the 12. Okay, and it's definitely the month from my experience where the fuck it mentality comes into play. You know, a lot of people down tools or just standards aren't quite where they were maybe in previous months, and that fuck it mentality creeps in. I'll be back on it in January. A few weeks don't matter if I down tools. And I think if you're a true high performer, that's absolute horseshit. You know, as you'll see if you remotely follow me on social media, and even with the events we put on in our program Built to Last, you know, we certainly have fun. We certainly have alcohol. We have nice, rich food. I love that. It's one of my things to relax. But I certainly don't have, and nor do my top clients have a back on it in January mentality. We're always on it. I'm yet to meet someone on a one-to-one front where I've asked them, given the choice, would you like to stay consistent and in shape, feeling good about yourself 12 months of the year? I've never met anyone who said no. And I think if someone does want to feel like shit during a certain month, it says a lot about their personal standards, okay? But yeah, definitely the fuck it mentality in December. And as I said just a second ago, from all my years of coaching, a lot of people have habitual patterns of thoughts, feelings, behavior, certain environments that they tend to be in December. And that's where the challenges can be presented, especially when it comes to food and booze, all right? And if you to maybe evaluate the last 5 to 10 years of your life, if you've been really honest with yourself and you're not quite where you want to be just now with your body shape, with your body weight perhaps, you would probably find just your natural trend is that December potentially, again, there's no judgment on this, but from my experience of even my top clients before they've come to Built to Last, their most inconsistent month or not as consistent month with actually following through on what they said they would do is definitely December, all right? So with this episode, I just want to help present to you a different way of thinking that might help you combat that inconsistency that's desperate to creep in, or that fuck it mentality, or the temptation to drink more food than deep down are aligned to your goals of how you want to look. All right. So how do we solve the problem? Ultimately, it all starts with how you organize your weeks. That your decisions are generally the outcome of obviously your state, of course, because that drives decisions, but ultimately how you organize your weeks and your days are going to dramatically impact the decisions you make. Okay. And one great way of doing that, and this is what I want to present to you today, is having like a best and worst case scenario. So you have an optimal standard, which you're going to obviously implement week to week, and you'll have a sort of minimum non-negotiable worst case scenario that you refuse to go below. Okay. I'm going to talk to you about mastering one thing as well, simplifying what you need to do to have the healthiest December of your life. The importance of creating a clear method or habit to keep yourself accountable. And more specifically, if you're trying to have the healthiest December of your life, how can we win each week? Right? We want to break it down this month, specifically week to week. Forward think, as I've spoke about in previous podcasts, how can we win each week? So at the end of December, we're closer to where we want to be and we meet our expectations. All right. So with this, I really do urge you put pen to paper on this specific exercise I'm going to take you through, because it's going to be pretty hard to remember some of these things just in your head. And if you can't be bothered to do that, that's no problem. If you are someone who has no worries about how consistent you're going to be with your health habits, with your food, your training, your movement, managing alcohol, whatever it is this month that you're doing. If you are someone who is really consistent and you are in optimal shape year round, then you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast. But if you know you really want to take charge and genuinely have the healthiest December of your life, I really urge you to put pen to paper and maybe pause and come back to this episode in particular, all right? Because the things I'm going through just now, this framework, has categorically helped the client transformations you see on the front end on my social media and on my website, to really take charge of their body composition goals and meet their expectations, during this month for sure. All right. So what I want you to do, and this is where, as I've just spoke about, we're talking about logic. All right. Because ultimately, when we're trying to achieve a new outcome or go to a new level in anything, and I'm sure you've done this in your career, you've done it in business, whether it's financial targets or just company growth in any way, you have to think with logic sometimes of where am I, where do I want to be, and what do I need to do to get there, all right? So the framework I'm going to go through is just thinking with like categorical logic, because if we're trying to achieve a healthier outcome that we've not had before in December, clearly we need to do things better than we've previously done in previous Decembers, right? And we need to upgrade standards in some way, all right? So what I'd like you to do is, like, there's going to be 5 columns. Imagine you've got 5 columns, okay, from left to right. You got 5 columns at the top, and then we've got my notes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 6 sort of categories going down underneath the first column. So apologies if that sounded a little bit confusing, but just in short, you want at the top 5 columns from left to right. The first column is category, right? Because we're going to have some categories underneath that. So the first column is category. Next to that is previous best. The next to that, current standard. The next to that, new standard. Next to that, key habit, all right? So underneath that first column, the 6 things I would like you to write underneath that, one by one, is average body weight, number 1. Number 2 is daily energy, and in brackets underneath that, great, okay, or bad. Number 3 underneath that is food/drink control. Again, in brackets, great, bad, or okay. Underneath that, average steps. Underneath that, controlled decisions. Again, great, bad, or okay. And the last one underneath is confidence, great, bad, or okay. All right. And I'll just elaborate on them in a second. So before we identify what our previous best was in these areas, current standard, new standards, etc., if we're trying to have the healthiest December of our life, what I want to look at these as, it's our weekly winners checklist, okay? This is like the little checklist that we want to be evaluating on a weekly and even a daily basis, because if we're trying to have the healthiest December of our life, what's going to actually represent that? We need some form of sort of KPIs as like, okay, what are the outcomes? What actually creates a healthiest December of our life? Okay, so if you look at those areas or categories that are broken down, if we're trying to have the healthiest, December of our life, for us to have the healthiest December of our life, we need to be able to control our body weight, which is number one. All right, because if our average body weight is significantly higher than we want it to be, we can't possibly have the healthiest December of our life. The second one, for example, daily energy. We can't have the healthiest December of our life if our energy is worse than what it's previously been, or we've got poor energy throughout the month of December. Number three, the food and drink control. We can't have the healthiest December of our life if our food and drink control isn't an upgrade on what it's previously been. Same with steps. It's highly unlikely you're going to create the healthiest December of your life if your average daily step target is lower than what it's previously been. Same with the next one, controlling decisions. All right, this is more of a mindset thing, of course, but we can't have the healthiest December of our life if we are failing to control our decisions. All right, and lastly, we can't have the healthiest December of our life if we aren't operating with confidence. Okay, I speak about confidence a hell of a lot. So there are 6 categories, all right? So your first column is category, and you've got these 6 things. And even if that sounds a little bit overwhelming, think about from those 6, which is the one category that you know if you upgraded your standard from a previous standard, that would be the one thing that would definitely shift the needle and give you the best opportunity of having the healthiest December, all right? But once you've identified that one thing, or even just going through those 6 things, right? Please put pen to paper on this, so you are, you've got accountability with yourself, and you've actually got something to measure it from. What I then want you to do across all those 6 areas, or one as an absolute minimum, what has been your previous best standard with those 6 areas? So if you were to evaluate maybe the last 5 years, the last 5 Decembers, what was your previous best in terms of controlling your average body weight? What was your previous best? So if you are currently a little bit overweight, carrying a bit more body fat, what has been your previous best average body weight? All right? And once you've identified that, and you're going to do this with all the other 5 areas, once you've identified, for example, what your previous best average body weight was, what is your current standard? In relation to your previous best, is your current standard like better, worse, or the same as that previous best? And what's going to be your new standard? Because obviously, if we're trying to have a healthy December, we have to create a new standard that we've not achieved before, right? And if you're trying to optimize body comp, or for example, a massive win for all of my Built to Last clients is how can we, maintain optimal condition without giving up our social occasions? But to do that, you need a target, all right? But what is the new standard going to be? Okay, so you've got your average body weight. What was the previous best? What is the current standard? The way you're actually operating right now as you listen to this episode, and what is going to be the new standard? And what is going to be the key habit that's going to create that new standard? So say, for example, you're currently maybe a kg up in body fat where you want to be at the end of December. And again, as I said, you can use this across any month, but let's focus on December for now, right? You're a kg up from where you want to be. And your previous best was maybe a kg down, but your current standard is a kg up. So your new standard might be a kg down, or maybe you want to raise the bar and be a kg and a half down in terms of your average body weight. What is the key habit that's going to take you there? Right? What is the key habit? Right? What is the one thing that if you did on a daily basis would impact that average body weight across December? Right? Because when you have clarity with that, it's easier to focus on what you need to do and what habit you need to implement to create that new standard to give you the outcome you want at the end of December. And you go through the same principle with your daily energy. All right? So if you were to evaluate maybe your current standard in terms of your daily energy, and we were to rate it good, great, bad, or okay, how would you rate your current standard and energy? And what's been your previous best? So if you were to think about maybe in the last 5 years, just so it's a little bit more relevant in your mind, what has been your best ever month, best ever year in December where you felt like your energy was fantastic or great? All right? And how can you create a new standard? What does that look like? Right? I think a lot of people with their daily energy in December, at best, even with business leaders, is generally okay because they're just not quite as intentful with their training. They're maybe eating a little bit more. They're drinking a little bit more, maybe a little bit more sleep deprived as you chase at end of year targets. But how can you create a new standard with your daily energy? Would you love to have great energy first and foremost? You need to get clear with that. If you're okay with okay daily energy, then that's fine, okay? Because where you're going to create disempowerment is if you're sort of telling yourself, I want great energy, but deep down in your heart, you're not prepared to do the things to create it, all right? So yeah, go through that. What's your previous best in energy? What's your current standard? What's your new standard? And what is the key habit that you think, if you did want that great energy or exceptional energy in December, what is the key habit that's going to create that? I know for a lot of my clients just now, we're challenging them simply to sleep more, right? It's nothing fancy, but a lot of people that we work with tend to have piss poor sleep in December. So the one habit we're getting them to focus on is how can you optimize sleep as much as you physically can in December? How can you get to bed early? Be disciplined with your sleep time, because that's the thing that's going to compromise your energy by not implementing it. All right, but that, whatever it is for you, just get clear on that. Same with the food and drink. All right, with your food and drink, what has been your previous best with your food and drink control? If you were to evaluate the last 5 years of your Decembers in terms of great, bad, or okay, what year did you feel was your previous best in terms of food and drink control? And what is your current standard in relation to that? Is it better? Is it in line? Is it worse? More importantly, what is the new standard you're going to set yourself in terms of food and drink control? Do you want great control? Do you want okay control? Or are you happy with bad control? If you're a genuine high-performing business leader, there is no way you want bad or even okay food and drink control, because that creates disempowerment. I think anything other than great control with food and drink control, like deep down, that's telling me you've lost control, all right? And that's usually followed by guilt when we do these things, all right? One of the greatest things, as I've said many times on these podcasts and to my clients, and this is what ultimately the outcome we're trying to achieve with all clients is, have you controlled the decision to eat the food at the restaurants or have those drinks, or is it from a reactive place? But get clear in your mind. Previous standard, current standard, what is my new standard, and what is the key habit in December that's going to help me operate with more control with my food and my drink? Is it forward planning? Is it forward planning menus? Preempting conversations in your mind when people are trying to force you to overeat or drink? But how can you make sure you have total control with your food and drink this December? Right? Same with steps. What has been your previous best in terms of your average step target the last 5 years? What is your current standard? So whether your average daily steps is 8K a day, 10K a day, 12K, 6, whatever your current standard is, what was your previous best? Is your current standard better than that? Has your previous best been better than what it is now? And what do you need to do to raise the bar again? It doesn't have to be dramatic. Even a 1,000 to 2,000 more average daily steps in December from your previous best is still going to create more energy output. And what does that mean? You're going to be able to create more energy output, so you're probably going to be able to handle a little bit more food to compensate for the extra calories on your social occasions. But what is the key habit that's going to make those average steps increase? So it's not just talk, Okay, we can all talk and say we're going to set this new standard, this new standard, this new standard. What is the one key habit that's going to make sure that you follow through on what you said you would do? Because that's what's key, all right? And then the last two is, of course, the controlled decisions, all right? So what is your current standard? If I was to say to you, what is your current standard in terms of you controlling your decisions? Is it great, bad, or okay? Do you feel like you take total control of your decisions to do with your food, your training, your movement, basically looking after your health? Or is it okay? Is it somewhere between okay and great? All right? And how can you create a new standard based on your previous best? And more importantly, again, what is the key habit that's going to help control your decisions better this December? Because when you get clear on the habit that's going to control your decisions, right, it's a lot easier to implement the better decisions because your habits are going to create those decisions, all right? But what is the key habit that you know when you do it, your decisions are, the positive decisions take care of themselves. It might be something in the morning. It might be something in the morning you do that you know when you implement that habit, your decisions for the rest of the day, are a lot more aligned to the outcome that you're trying to achieve, okay? And then confidence. If I was to say to you in the last, I keep saying 5 years, but just so you give yourself a bit more buffer, even in the last 3 years, okay? What's been your previous best in terms of confident? How confident you felt within yourself and externally, okay? What is your current standard? If I was to say to you, your current standard of confidence, is it great? Is it bad? Is it okay? Even if it's great, how can you make it even better, right? But what is the new standard and what is the habit that's going to create that confidence? Because for me, confidence is created by your actions and saying you're going to do something and following through. And this ties in with decision making, of course, all right? But what is the key habit that you think if you implement that habit, you know that you live with a more confident output, you carry yourself more confidently when you implement that habit, all right? And that's just basic logic, all right? So again, that might sound a little bit heavy, but even if you want to strip it back, from those 6 things, right? From the average body weight, your daily energy, your food, drink control, your average steps, your decision making, your confidence, what is the one category that you think if you violated your previous standard would guarantee a more healthy December, all right? But if you're a real go-getter, I challenge you to really break down all 6 and evaluate what your current standard is, what's been the previous best, and how can we logically improve that with simple, easy to implement habits that we can hold ourselves accountable to, all right? So that's more logic. But sometimes what's logical to do is also very easy not to do. So I think it's very important to have an emotional awareness of why it's important to do these logical things and why it's important we have a healthy December. Because if it was that simple and easy to do the logical thing, a lot more people would be healthier in December. A lot more people would be consistent in December. A lot more people would follow through on what they said they would do. But I think from all my experience of coaching, there's just not enough emotional awareness and, more importantly, daily reminders of why it's important to be healthy, who it's for, what the consequences, etc., if they aren't as healthy as what they want to be, all right? So speak or write the following 4 sentences every single morning. I personally prefer to speak out loud with emotion into a mirror in the center of my vision board, or even in the mirror after I brush my teeth. It sounds a bit weird, but I think there's nothing more powerful than attaching emotion to who you need to be on a given daily basis, who it's for, what's your mission, what's your purpose, and more importantly, what the habits that you need to show up as that day, all right? But whatever works for you, I do not care. But if you have aspirations to be more consistent, then I really do urge you to take time to speak or write these 4 out loud, or at least one of them that resonates with you most, okay? The first one is write or say this: why I need December to be my healthiest is because, then finish the sentence. So say, for example, myself, if I was speaking that out loud, why I need December to be my healthiest is because I want to go into 2023 sharp, energized, focused, and on the front foot, so I absolutely smash my January goals. When you say or write that on a daily basis throughout the month of December, you are far more likely to implement those logical things I've just covered than not. You're far more likely to get your steps in. You're far more likely to make better food decisions. You're far more likely to train with intent. You're far more likely to go to bed a bit earlier. You're far more likely to control your drinking at a social occasion if you're reminding yourself that, okay, of why it's important that December is healthy. As I said, I speak out loud every morning into a mirror in a vision board or after I've brushed my teeth. And it's so, so powerful when you attach emotion to who you need to show up as. But please just experiment in what works best for you. The second sentence, the people who need me healthy and full of energy are. So often, as I've said on previous podcasts, we're more likely to follow through on things we know we should do when we are aware of the people in our lives it actually impacts, whether it's our business colleagues, our kids, our partners. But say or write that sentence. The people who need me healthy and full of energy are, list the people. And if you're reminding yourself that first thing in the morning, you're more likely to implement the actions, habits, and behaviors to be healthy for those people. And by default, of course, you'll feel better within yourself. The third sentence, the consequences if I don't raise my standards and actions are. When you're reminding yourself of the negative impact on your life of not being healthy or showing up and implementing the standards and actions that deep down you should do, you're more likely to do the opposite, which is obviously implement those habits, okay? So the consequences if I don't raise my standards and actions are, what would be the emotional negative impact if you don't have a healthy December? Because a lot of the times it takes pain and the fear of not having something to make us implement, all right? But what are the negative consequences if you don't raise your standards this December, all right? And then lastly, and maybe the framework I went through will probably give you the answer to this, but the sentence is this: the one key habit to keep me accountable is. So what is the one key habit in the month of December on a daily basis that would keep you most accountable to having a healthy December, right? So write or speak. The one key habit to keep me accountable is, it could be emotion-led. It could be doing something first thing in the morning. It could be doing something, at night time. What is the one key habit that will keep you most accountable? I know for me, just being really, really aware of, how I start my morning, and even the sort of positive affirmations and incantations, and reminding myself of my daily mission, my why, my purpose, etc. Doing that first thing, that's like the catalyst that implements like a positive ripple effect on the rest of my day. Right. So for me, the one key habit that would keep me accountable is every single morning reminding myself of why I do what I do and why it's important that I am healthy, lean, strong, etc. All right. So hopefully that should have helped. As I said, you've got logical solutions where I've gone through your current standards, previous standards, what is the new standard, right? And that'll give you clarity. And then those 4 sentences, or even if you pick one that most resonates with you, that's going to remind you emotionally of why it's important to have a healthy December in the first place, because they have to work together. So often it's being more aware of our emotions in relation to where we're trying to go that actually makes us do the things that takes us to where we want to go. All right. And even though I've gone through some questions today, of course, by default, one great question I think you can ask yourself on a daily basis, if all of today was a little bit too much for you, if you are ever feeling like compromised or run the risk of being influenced by someone else potentially with any of your healthy habits this December, great question is, what would someone 10 times leaner, healthier, more consistent do? So if you ever feel like lowering standards, eating more shit, drinking more alcohol than you first intended to, skipping your steps, your sessions, consistently going to bed late, just remind yourself of that question. What would someone 10 times leaner, healthier, more consistent do? That is a a brutal, straight to the point question that's going to get you evaluating on what would someone significantly healthier than you do in that situation. And if you have aspirations to be, even if it's 5%, 10%, 20%, whatever level you'd like to be, that's an upgrade from where you're currently at, right? Ultimately, if people are operating to a higher standard than you with how lean they are, how healthy they are, how more consistent they are, it's because of what they do, not what they say they'll do. So ask yourself that question: what would someone 10 times leaner, healthier, more consistent do in this situation? And you are so much more likely to implement better decisions when you ask yourself that question. And the quote I'm going to leave you with, and again, I love this. This is Tom Bilyeu special. I may have said this before, but repetition is the mother of all skill or acquiring, more skills. I only do that will move me closer to my goals. So I think if you took nothing else away from today's podcast episode, if you ask yourself the question of what would someone 10 times leaner, healthier, more consistent do, and remind yourself of that quote of I only do that will move me closer to my goals, that is powerful when you remind yourself of those two things on a daily basis. All right. So if you've listened this far to this podcast episode, then I can definitely safely say that you are someone who has aspirations to have a healthier December. And this is where, I personally pride myself on looking beneath the surface with things when it comes to health, fitness, mindset than a lot of coaches out there. Basically, you evaluate better and you look more specifically, where you are, where you're looking to go and what you need to do. And more importantly, how you need to think as well, while you're trying to move forward. So hopefully you've took some great takeaways. Please feel free to share with anyone who would definitely benefit from this, if they are someone too who would love a healthier December. And appreciate all your support with this podcast. And let's cut the bullshit. Take control this December and notice how much more happy you feel at the end of December and going into 2023. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.